Hi friends, this is Miss Paige and today we're going to be reading Honestly, Red Riding Hood Was Rotten. Now before we start, does this book sound familiar to anyone? Do you think maybe you've read or maybe you heard about Red Riding Hood, maybe? Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Honestly, Red Riding Hood Was Rotten. And this story is written by Tricia Shankin and illustrated by Gerald. Alright. Chomp chomp. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just finishing my lunch. My name's Wolf, or better known as the Big Bad Wolf. You may have heard the story of Little Red Riding Hood, about a girl and her granny. Seems everyone has heard that tale. Did I say tell? I meant tell. Let's stop right there and look. I don't know if you can see it, but what is the difference between this tell and that tell? What do you think the difference is? Why do you think he corrected himself? Do you think there is a difference, or do you think maybe he just was repeating himself? There is a difference. If you said there was, correct. So the difference is this tell is like a fairy tale or a story. This tell is like an animal's tell. All right, let's continue. Once upon a time, I ran out of food. Completely. The cupboards were bare. Have you ever heard the word bare? If so, what does it mean? What does it mean for someone to say, the cupboard is bare? Maybe we'll find out as we continue reading. The freezer, too. And I'd eaten every last vegetable and fruit in the garden. Every one. Other wolves might have lunched on little feasts. Chipmunks, bunnies, squirrels. But I'm a vegetarian. That's right. Before I read, have you ever heard of the word vegetarian? If so, what is a vegetarian? You're right. A vegetarian is someone who does not eat meat. Well, I try not to eat meat. I love apples. Honeycrisp, Pink Lady, Golden Delicious, any kind, really. But sadly, it was a long time until it was apple harvest. I hadn't eaten an apple in weeks. My stomach growled and howled. It moaned and groaned. It even roared. Then my nose took over. I took a whiff. What is it? A girl? I took another whiff. What is it? Cake, butter. In this forest, I had to investigate. Do you love butter and cake? I love cake. What do you think he's going to find? Do you think he's going to find cake and butter? I don't know. Let's see. And there she was, Little Red Riding Hood. She looked plump and juicy, as big as a big sweet apple. Little Red Riding Hood waved her cape. Isn't it pretty? She said. Yeah, I said. Aren't I so pretty? She said. Was she admiring herself in that puddle? With this cape, she said, I'm even prettier than usual. Boy, someone was full of herself. My stomach growled. Little Red twirled a strand of her hair. Mother says the cape looks grand with my skin. My skin shines like pearls. Or the meat of a ripe apple, I thought, licking my chomps. Remember, I hadn't eaten in weeks. Time to chomp. But then Little Red said, I can't wait until Granny sees how pretty I am today. I'm bringing her cake and butter for my mother. My stomach howled. 2 meals, I thought. Granny for breakfast, Little Red for lunch, and cake and butter for dessert. Where does Granny live? I asked. Little Red pointed down the hill in the clearing. The brown house. I knew that house, and I had a plan. So you can see she's pointing down at the house. Look at the wolf's face. Do you think this is going to end well? Let's see. Let's play a game, I said. Little Red smiled. I'm awesome at games. I bet you are, I said. You take this path, I'll take that path, and let's see who arrives at Granny's first. Do you ever compete with your siblings or with someone? You trick them to play a game, like you tell them to go one way and you go another way because you know your way will win. I've definitely done that before. I will, she said. I'm the prettiest and the fastest. I bet you are, I said. Who do you think's going to win? Who do you think will be at Granny's house first? Let's read and see. My stomach moaned before it groaned. I ran. No one knows the force like I do. I chose the shorter path. I took a whiff. What was it? Apple air freshener. Tap, tap. I knocked on the door. Who's there? Called out a voice. Your granddaughter, I squeaked. I brought you cake and butter from Mother. The door opens. Granny said, come on in. Ooh, Granny fell for it. Do you think Granny's gonna fall for it? Or do you think when she sees him, she's gonna know that that's not her granddaughter? All right. Granny tugged at her nightcap. Green, she said, isn't it pretty? Pretty like a Granny Smith apple, I thought. Aren't I pretty? Granny said. You must have heard the saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Well, it's true. My stomach roared. What's that noise? Granny asked. Chomp, chomp. I had to eat her. She was no Macintosh apple, but not too bad. I still felt hungry. Tap, tap. Little Red knocked on the door. Who's there? I called out, crawling into Granny's bed. Your granddaughter, Little Red said. I brought you cake and butter from Mother. Door's open, I said. Little Red walked in and caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Isn't my cat pretty, Granny? She said. Aren't I pretty? I clenched my teeth. Let's see what happens. Granny, Little Red said, what deep dark eyes I have. I said, the color of apple seeds. Granny, she said, what perfect ears I have. I said, shaped like sharply cut apple slices. Granny, she said, what pretty red lips I have. I said, red, delicious. Granny, she said, what lovely skin I have. Oh no. Chomp, chomp. I ate her up. What can I say? Things look different when you're hungry. She was no Fuji or Crispine apple. In fact, to be honest, she was a bit rotten, but she was better than nothing. Plus, I got dessert. Let's stop and think. Why do you think that the author said that she was rotten? Why do you think they put that? Do you think because it was an apple, or do you think there was another meaning behind saying that? Also, let's think. If it wouldn't have been apple season, or not been apple season, do you think that the wolf would have eaten Granny and Little Red, or do you think that he would have eaten apples and then we wouldn't be in this situation? We will never know, I guess. So now, if you've read the original story, Little Red Riding Hood, seeing the difference between this story and the original one, what were some of the differences that you may have seen in the old one that didn't happen in this story? And why do you think that the wolf gave his opinion? Do you think it's important to have two different people's opinions, or do you think the one story was good enough? Thank you so much for coming and reading this book with me, and continue thinking about some of those questions we asked. Have a good day.